be exposed or they are comes in that. So entry into the organism. Organism. How that should be entered there? So via the stomach, gills, lungs. So these are the different routes that should be enters in the living organisms. After that, that should becomes. So then after distribution within organism. Organisms. How this should be? So by circulatory fluid or by the blood or whatever the circulatory fluid is there. So that should be they are distributed to this one. Then after these toxicant is stored in tissue. So this is inactive in this form. In this form, these are the original compounds. Original compounds. So when they comes, they have toxicant at site of action. Site of action within the organism. Within the organism. And then after that should be toxic effect. This is the another. These are when they are distributed in the organisms. Then sometimes they are stored. Some of them that is these are the present in the original compounds. So that's why they have effects to the organisms. Another biotransfer. Then after excretion. So these biotransformed compound, so that should be excreted by the urine and some another. Biotransformed, this one is the, so they have comes to here, toxicant at the site of action in the within the organisms. Then after that should be effects to the toxic effects to the living organisms. So this is the route that they comes in our body and then after they have effects to the living organisms. Now what are the routes of entry to organism? How they have enters. The routes of entry to organism. to organism. So first they comes in the air here. Then after that comes in the lungs. After the entry of the lungs. Then after that should becomes in the blood. They comes in because the kidney is the filtration system is there, kidney and lungs, liver, because lungs is here. In the liver, this is the blood. Suppose some food contents, we are taking this one, the food and water. This is the, so by this one, they have enters into the stomach and intestine. Then after these toxicants, they comes in blood. After the blood, then that should be comes in a tissue and skin. After the tissue and skin, and here blood, that should be effect to the bone. Blood, so stomach entry, intestine, tissue and skin, bone. So these are the bones is there. Then after tissue and skin, after the entry of the tissue and skin, so they solid and liquids, they accumulated. In the body, in this form, that is presence in the. So this is the route entry to organisms. Just a minute. So these are the pollutants which enters in our body, and then after that they have effects to the living organisms. Now what are these? So these are the inorganic pollutants, or organic pollutants, oxygen demanding waste, plant nutrients, disease causing agents, thermal discharge, radioactive waste, and suspended solids. How they have effects, or what are the health effects of this one? So, we know this one, कि metals are essential or non-essential to the living organisms. That is depending on their requirement for the normal metabolic function, because these metals are essential and non-essential. So these are when the certain amount or certain concentration of these pollutants or these metals, they are present in our body. So these are the essential. But after a certain beyond that limit, they have effects to the living organisms. Suppose aluminum, one of the examples here we are giving. So aluminum is the third most abundant elements in the earth crust. So which how they are toxic? So how these aluminum extracted? So that is extracted from a bauxite. and we are using in a canning, food packaging, foil for covering and preserving foodstuffs, beverage can, cooking utensils. So these are the used of aluminum. So when that should be in a higher concentration, so they have interfered with the phosphate metabolism. Because these certain concentration that should be exceed. So then after that should be effects to the living organisms. Basically, their effect with the phosphate metabolism. So aluminum reduces the bioavailability of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and casein, and inhibits certain active enzymes by complexing them. They have formed a complexes with the different enzymes, so thus they have reduces the activities of the enzymes. And when that should be fixed to the this is the plant. So plant roots are thick. So when thickness that should be increases, so that should be fixed to the plant. So this is the emerit system. Another is here in this one. We saw the cadmium. These are the inorganic pollutants. So what are the sources is there? So industrial effluents, cadmium, nickel battery, nuclear fission plants, water pipes. These are the what are the effects is there? So kidney damage, disorder of liver and brain, bone marrow disorder, gastric and intestinal disorder. So these are the effects. The cadmium. What is the how they have effects to this one? The enzymes. These are there is the presence of a sulfur hydroxide. These are the SH. So they have combines with the zinc. Zinc is the sensor. So that's why there is the formation of this enzymes. But when this one cadmium is present, so then after cadmium they have replaces this zinc. So after the replacing this zinc, so that is combined with the enzymes. So they are reducing the enzyme or they have effects to the living organisms by this one. Another mercury, the mining and refining of mercury, agriculture industries, paper industry. So these are the mainly sources is there. Effects, kidney damage, numbness of limb, tongue and lips, blurred vision, deafness, and mental disorder. So these are the effects of the mercury. Just a minute. When methyl mercury that is presence, so they are comes in ionic. After that, when they have comes in ionic, there is the presence of hydroxyl sulfur group or alkene sulfur. They are present. They are react with this one. So this one is converting by a bacterial photolysis. By the bacteria or microorganism, they are changed into this one, and then after mercury metal that should becomes after the absorbing of it. So they breaks here, and then after that is converting into a metal. After that, these are methyl group that should be liberated from this one and mercury. When that should becomes in the form in this form, they are available to react another formation of the mercury sulfide alkene RS2 Hg. Another hydroxyl, so that is depends on the pH of the water. So if the alkaline medium, so then that should becomes in a metal form. So this is the inactive. But after that, when they are in comes in acidic form, so they are comes in this soluble formation or ionic formation. Then after they have react further there, so they have effects to the living organisms. HgCl2, methyl cobalamin. This one is the that is the conversion of this one HgCl2, and then after CS3 Hg plus. This one is. So this is the main effects of this one. Another, arsenic. So basically arsenic, natural rocks and soils, agriculture industries, fungicides, pesticides, mining and extraction. So these are the sources. That's why the arsenic that should be comes in our environment. But we are using some another uh, substances is there. So thus these arsenic that should be comes in the environment. Just a minute. What are the another sources? So lead arsenate and sodium and calcium arsenate salts. They are used as a pesticides. Monosodium arsenite and dimethyl arsenic acids. So these are specifically employed as weed killers in the insecticides. Some arsenic compounds, that is a fluorochrome arsenate, phenyl, or chromated copper arsenate. So they are used in a wood preservatives. So that's why they are used, and thus they comes in the environment. So what are the effects? So liver damage, central nervous damage, bone marrow, maybe lead to skin cancer. So these are the causes for arsenic. And how the arsenic? So these enzymes they react with the arsenic, and that should be blocked to this one. So that's why the enzyme is inactive. So they have effects to the living organisms. So these are the major sources, not the some of the another, that is cadmium, chromium, cobalt, copper. So these are the essential. But after beyond some limits is there, so they have effects to this one. Suppose iron concentration, when that should be, this is the essential component of the hemoglobin basically. But when the ferric oxide, so that is causing for a pseudouresis, that is mottling of the lungs. There is this some unusual diseases. These are the casting bee, that is present in the Asia basically. So when the concentration of these things increases beyond a certain limits, molybdenum is one of them. So it is essential element for the nitrogen fixing organism in the environment. Livestock, especially cattle, are susceptible to molybdenous disease conditions. So these are the different. And by the mercury, there is the episode that should be happens in a Japan. That is the name of this episode is Minimeta. That is. And now diseases. Second term is disease. So disease causing agents. So these are the different diseases is there. These are the virus associated disease. Virus, adenoviruses, respiratory and eye infections, hepatitis, A virus, infectious hepatitis, poliovirus, poliomyelitis, ecovirus, that is the diarrhea, respiratory infections, bacteria, these are the common bacteria which is present in the water, salmonella typhoid fever, salmonella paratyphoid fever, vibrio cholera, this is the Shigella species, this is the bacillary dysentery, protozoans, Entamoeba histolytica, cryptosporidium species, so this is the cousin for amoebic dysentery, diarrhea, these are the, so this is the, now another is the helminthics, hookworm, so these are the diseases that is causing for when we have drink the polluted water. Now pesticides and plant nutrients. So first thing, what is pesticides? So pesticides are the organic chemicals used to control unwanted and dangerous species of plants and animals. Pesticides are specifically termed according to the group of pests against which they apply. Suppose that is applied for algae, protection of algae, so then algicides. When bacteria, so that is a bactericides. Fungi, if we are use these pesticides against the fungi, so that is fungicides. Weeds, that is the herbicides. Insects, insecticides. So these are the name of the pesticides. What are their impacts on environment? The impacts on environment, that is depends on the following factor. What are these? Tendency to dissolve in water. These pesticides, how much they are soluble in the water. Tendency to evaporate. Some of the pesticides, they are highly volatile. So that's why in lower temperature, they have vaporized in the atmosphere. So this is the vaporized tendency to vaporize. And another, that is the chemical stability towards degradation process. How much easily they are degraded by the microorganisms. So these are the factors which can affect to the environment. Of sources of pesticidal pollutants in water. What are the? So rainwater, spray drift, rainwater, when the rain that should be comes from a different areas is there. So then there is the contaminations of pesticides. Spray drift, the farmers, they are using the spray for. So then after there is the small molecules that should becomes in the environment. So this is the one of them. Runoff from the agriculture fields. Suppose when the rain water that should becomes from the soils in the agriculture land, from agriculture land. So what is these pesticides? They are soluble in this one. So that's why they comes in the reservoir. After that, they have effects to the living organisms. Industrial effluents, domestic sewage. So these are the sources of pesticidal pollutants in water. What are these? The domestic sewage, chlorinated hydrocarbon, DDT, heptachlor, dieldrin, eldrin. These are the different names is there. Why they have effects to the living organisms? So they have persist in the soil in a longer time. Suppose heptachlor, so they are persist in a 9 years, eldrin 9 years, dieldrin 9 years, DDT 10 years, chlordine 12 years, atrazine 18 months, 2,4-D. This should be happens in the soils, that is in 14 to 30, 60. So that's why they have a presence in a longer times in the soil. So that's why they have effects to the living mainly. They comes in the food or directly, that should becomes in the living organisms or indirectly. Herbicides. The herbicides, basically these are the carbamates, phenoxyestic acid, triagens, phenylureas. So these are the name of the herbicide. Insecticides, organophosphate, carbamates, organochloro, pyrethrins, pyrethroids. These are the insecticides. Fungicides, dithiocarbamates, copper nutrients. So these are the different. What are the effects is there? The DDT is accumulated in food chain. and continuously recycling in living organisms and attached to central nervous system. Insecticide like BSC, Eldrin, Dieldrin, Chloradine, and endosulfan. So these are the insecticides. The effects: heart, brain, kidney, and liver. Insecticides affects the wildlife by changing their metabolic activities and body chemistry. 2,4-D affects embryos, while triazones may cause mutagenic effects in animal. Very low concentration of DD causes death in brine shrimp. Polychlorinated biphenyl is concentrated in the food chain of marine ecosystem. Raptorial hawks is the bird's name, and falcons are severely affected by DDT, which causes breeding failure and death in them. So this is the main reasons or main effects to the living organisms. Hello.
Yes, sir.
ये चीजें आप लोगों को क्लियर हो रही हैं क्योंकि पेस्टिसाइड्स अब now thermal pollutants, how they have effects. So main thermal pollution is what? What are the effects is there? The reduction in dissolved oxygen. When the increases the temperature of the water temperature is increases, so holding capacity of oxygen is reduces. So that's why there is a reduction in dissolved oxygen. Direct fish mortality if the oxygen is less. So then that should be effects. Metabolic change because the oxygen is less. So their respirations that is increasing in this one, the metabolic process is increases. Lung activity, this one is so that should be effects to the. So these are the thermal pollutions basically. Thermal pollution. Why this one is the thermal pollution means increases the temperature of the water. So mainly that should be decreases the oxygens in this water. So that's why that should be these are the effects to the living organism. Radioactive pollutants. So these are the sources: nuclear weapons, nuclear power plants, and nuclear reactor, mining and processing of ores. What are the effects? The radioactive materials react with the protein and deactivate the enzyme cell division may be stopped. This is the causing for a cancer, one of the case, this type of. Trace amount of radioactive elements containing radon 222 and thorium, this is the 232, could accumulate in man, causing genetic disorder. Long-lived strontium-90 is deposited into many and to man may damage teeth and bones. So these are the radioactive pollutants when they have accumulated in the body, and then after that should be fixed to the living organisms. Another is the sediments, sedimentation basically. Soil sedimentation. So when soil erosions by natural process give rise to sediment pollution in water. Effect to destroy aquatic organisms, reducing light penetration in water. Water bodies easily flooded because these sands they fill up. They reduces the depth of the rivers. So that's why that is the flooded is much more. Now another is the plant nutrients. How the plant nutrients they have effects. So plant nutrients contributes an important limiting factor for plant growth. This one is it. So nitrogen and phosphorus are main nutrient of plants. These are the main food of the plant. Addition of nitrogen and phosphorus promotes algal growth and they may cause eutrophication. When the imbalance of the nitrogen and phosphorus in the water, so then there is the particular algae growth in that water and they have blocked the upper surfaces of the water bodies. So thus they That is the particular, when the particular algae that should be bloom of this one, so that is a eutrophication. And then after, when what is the effects is there, so basically they have reduces the oxygens in the waters, so that's why that is much more effective. The eutrophication is the two types. One is the natural eutrophication and another is the cultural eutrophication. These natural and eutrophication. The eutrophication is derived from Greek word EU, that is the well, and tropes mean food. So well food. So any lakes, that is when the age of the lake is increasing, so these lakes are converting into a one trophic to another trophic. So first oligotrophic is one of the term. When the poor nutrient is there, poor nutrient means there is the less presence of a nitrogen and phosphorus in that, less aquatic life. Water is clear. That's why the sunlight that should be comes to the bottom. Another thing, less aquatic life is there. So that's why requirements of the foods is less in that reservoir. So these are the newly ponds. We can say this one, the newly pond, these are the oligotrophic. That is the poor nutrients. Another is the mesotrophic. So mesotrophic, not low, not high. This is the middle part of the age of the leaf. So when the mesotrophic is there, so there is the not low or not high, high nutrition, plant nutrient that is present. Aquatic life is there. These are the presence in this one. So this one is the mesotrophic. So this is the mesotrophic lake. Another is the eutrophic lake. That is the sufficient concentration of plant nutrients, sufficient amount of the numbers of the aquatic life is there. The water quality that should be reduces the light, because the turbidity slightly that is increases in this one. So thus the light that should not comes to the bottom. So these are the eutrophic. There is the sufficient concentration. So if we, there is the two types. One is the natural eutrophication and another is the cultural eutrophication. Natural eutrophication process of lake. This one is the, that should be happens by the natural. So when the natural activities they are done, if we plot a graph of this one here, this is the age in the year, pond age. So in the starting, this is the by the natural process, when that should be occurs, so it should becomes slightly that is increasing. Then after that is going in a eutrophic. So this is the natural eutrophication. Natural eutrophication. When the man-made or artificial, so that is direct comes into the in this way. So this is the man-made or artificial or cultural. This one by the humans. These what are these? The oligotrophic lake. Suppose this one that should be occurs. So this is the oligotrophic lake. Oligotrophic lake. This one is the. Then after there is the mesotrophic lake. Mesotrophic lakes in between them. That is a healthy. So there is that it means there is a low concentration of it, not low, not high. aquatic life, plant nutrients, these are the, and the sunlight that should becomes in the middle of the part of this. Then after eutrophic, this is the, so when the natural, by the natural process, it should take a longer time to convert into oligo to mesotrophic and then meso to eutrophically. This is the eutrophically. So these are the, it should take a long time, but due to the man-made or cultural eutrophications, so this should be happens a very few years. It may be 10 years, it may be 5 years. 5 to 10 years that pond is converting into a eutrophically. And after the eutrophic, there is the extension of this one. There is the no presence of a aquatic life in that water. Why this should be happen? So that is only for increases the toxicity of the water. So all these are comes in a die of this one. About how this should be happens. So when the phosphorus in excess of 0.0015 milligram per liter and nitrogen in excess of 0.3 milligram per liter to cause algal bloom. When the algal bloom is there, so these lags is converting into a eutrophic, and after that, that is converting into a. From the detergent, suppose these phosphates, so that is conversion of this one. So phosphate that is the phosphorus content that is increases in this one. What are the ways is there? Sources of cultural eutrophications. So these are the sources. Discharge of untreated municipal sewage, nitrate and phosphates that should be comes in the reservoir. Discharge of detergents, phosphate that should be come. Nitrogen compounds produced by cars and factories that should become. Natural runoff nitrates and phosphorus they are adding. Inorganic fertilizers runoff from nitrates and phosphorus. These are the agriculture filtration that should become because the farmer they are using this one. Manure runoff from feed plots. This one is the, so when that should become, so there should be addition of a nitrate and phosphorus in the ammonia. This is the dissolving of nitrogen oxides from internal combustion engine and turbines. So that's why they are come. So these are comes in these reservoirs, and that's why the concentration that should be increases. Of development of the eutrophication process in lake or reservoir. So land occupation by woods and forest, that is, so that's why these nitrogen and phosphorus that should be. Land used for agriculture, so then the runoff from the waters, so that should becomes in that reservoir. Urban occupations, so thus the nitrate and phosphorus they are adding here in this one. So these are the, what are the effects of eutrophications? Algal bloom release toxic chemicals which kill fish, birds and other aquatic animals. These eventually die and decomposes enhancing BOD and decreases in dissolved oxygens. Basically, biological oxygen demand is increasing, so that's why the microorganisms they have decomposes these organic waste. So they require say oxygen. So that's why the dissolved oxygen that should be decreased in this one. So this is the one of them. So thus in poor oxygen supply, aquatic organisms begin to die, and the clean water turns into a stinking drain. This is the many pathogenic microbes, viruses, protozoa, bacteria, there is the grow on sewage products under anaerobic conditions. So it results into a spread of fatal waterborne diseases such as polio, dysentery, typhoid, etc. A lake may be regarded as a consisting of several layers. These are the differentiated on the basis of a temperature, carbon dioxide and oxygens, and presence of organisms. These are the. So what are these? So on the thermal stratification is there. On the basis of temperature, any lake that is divided into three parts: epeleman, thermocline, hypoleman. So these are the different layers is there. After the increases of the seasonal variations is there. So one of them is disappear, and there is a two of them, or this should be thermocline is decreasing in this one. So there is the hot water and the cold water that should be presence in the summer, but in the winter, what is going on? That is the cold regions is there. So this one is flowing of the waters, warm water that should be floated in the lower bottom. So all the aquatic life they have comes in the lower bottom. So due to the seasonal variations is there. So lake properties that is also changed. That is it. When the warmer of this one, so that is the block of why this should be happens. So due to the density of the water at the 4 degrees Celsius, density of the water is maximum. When decreases the temperature and increases the temperature, so density that should be decreases. So this is the epeleman, that is the warm surface layer. This is the temperature drops from this one, lower the temperature of this epeleman is the thermocline, and then the hypoleman, this is the temperature is much more. This is the winter season at the 4 degrees Celsius here. What is going on? Due to the decreases the temperature density, so that's why there comes in the upper surfaces they have blocks. The density of the lower water is increases, so that's why the warm or cold water in the winter, in the cold water they are floating on a upper surfaces. Just in the summer, warm water that is flowing in this one, and then after the water temperature is decreasing to the bottoms. So this is the temperature variation. When the temperature variations is there, so there is the variation of oxygens in the. So this is here we are showing the temperature inversion and dissolved oxygen inversion. If the temperature is high, due to the seasonal variations is there, then after that is the mix up of these nutrients in the water in the spring season when the seasonal suppose winter, and at that time suppose. So in this time the temperature that is nearer to the same for a upper and lower bottom, so that's why that is the mixing of the waters, and during that the mix up of a equal the dissolved oxygen, equal the temperature of the waters, and equal the food content that is presence in cooling. So this is the dissolved temperature that is varies, and dissolved oxygen is showing here. In the lower bottom, the dissolved oxygen is decreases. In the upper portions, the dissolved oxygen is maximum. Why this should be happens? Because the dissolved oxygen they are dissolved in the waters. Atmospheric oxygens that is soluble in this one. There is the another is the photosynthesis reactions. So these oxygen that should be added in that water. And consumption is the different ways is there. So when the algal bloom is there, so blockage of these surfaces, so that's why atmospheric oxygen they are not soluble in this one. So whatever the oxygen that is present in the water, so aquatic lives or animals they have used feces, they use that oxygen. So that's why the oxygen that is decreasing this one. And depth is increasing here, so dissolved oxygen that is decreased. So here the typical temperature and dissolved profiles in the lake under stratification and turnover conditions. So when the lake water is mixing in this one, so that is called a turnover of the lakes. This is the one of the. हेलो.
Yes, sir.
ये समझ में आया आप लोगों को थर्मल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन ऑक्सीजन टेम्परेचर का इन द लेक?
Yes, sir.
चलो अब तो टाइम खत्म हो रहा है. चलो नेक्स्ट क्लास में फिर इसके आगे व्हाट आर द इफेक्ट्स कंट्रोल ऑफ यूट्रिफिकेशन. ठीक है नेक्स्ट क्लास में. ठीक है, तो मैं भी मीटिंग क्लोज कर रहा हूँ। फिर
सर
नेक्स्ट क्लास में
21st को सर जो क्विज है उसका पैटर्न क्या सर?
उसका पैटर्न ऑब्जेक्टिव क्वेश्चन है।
यस सर।
Okay,
ठीक
sir.
है,
Thank you, sir.
वेलकम टू ऑल ऑफ यू।
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू।
सर ऑनलाइन होगा क्विज?
Thank you, sir.
हाँ, ऑनलाइन ही है अभी। क्यों, सारे लोग आ जाएंगे?
नहीं
नोट
सर।
ऐसा तो है नहीं कि सारे के
Sir, the
सारे।
quiz will be in online mode
हाँ
on 21st.
हाँ,
Okay, okay, sir.
not 24, the date is, that is 21,
21st.
21st, हाँ,
Thank you, sir.
21st.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.